Obrobka drvala 19th. The sand told me first. It pressed together under my whisk where it should have run like water, as if the desert itself were holding something in. Late light slid down the cliffs, copper on limestone, and the wind over the wadi tasted of dust and dates. I brushed, slower, and a clean edge appeared. Straight, true, a line a chisel had made and time had hidden. I put my palm to it. Cool plaster under a skin of heat. "Reese," I called, keeping my voice low, as if a shout might frighten the past away. He came, narrowed his eyes against the glare, and together we coaxed the first step out of the earth. Around us the valley felt different, like a chest pausing between breaths. A boy ran for Carter. He arrived hat askew, eyes bright, that little tremor in his fingers he hid by tucking his hands behind his back. "Careful," he said, and the word was both order and prayer. Basket by basket the stairway grew. 10 steps, 15, the sides so true they read like a corridor written back into stone. We worked until lanterns made our shadows lunge on the cliff. The dust had a different smell here, closer, like a jar opened after a very long time. We covered what we could and set a guard. In camp the old stories came out, the jackal who kept the gates of the necropolis, kings who walked the wadi at dusk, greedy men who dug where they should not and were carried home on doors. I lay under my blanket and counted my breaths until the flies returned with the first iron light. By noon the second day we stood at the bottom of 30 steps before a plastered doorway stamped with a jackal and the 9 bound prisoners. The ancient cords had been cut and retied. Even dust could not hide that old trespass. "Robbed," someone breathed. The Reese silenced him with a look. Carter crouched so close the brim of his hat brushed the plaster and learned the door by eye alone. We opened it stone by numbered stone. Beyond lay a descending corridor choked with rubble, the stale breath of centuries pressing our tongues as we passed baskets hand to hand in a narrow rhythm. Lift, set, scrape, lift. At the far end another sealed door waited, smoother, its cords unbroken since the day they were tied. Under lamplight a cartouche rose through dust, a shape not any of the names the elders taught their grandsons. Later I would say it easily, Tutankhamun. That day it was only a sleeping name. Carter had us drill a hole no bigger than a coin near the top. He cupped a candle and leaned in. The flame bowed inward, drawn by hunger. He looked through. For a heartbeat the corridor held completely still. Lord Carnarvon whispered, "Can you see anything?" Carter's mouth opened around a sound like a man finding the word he had hunted for years. "Yes," he said softly. "Wonderful things." We widened the gap and slid in one by one. The antechamber answered our lamps with a second sunrise. Gold everywhere. Couches crouched like beasts ready to spring. Chariots nested. Rails gleaming where a king's hands had once rested. A throne fretted with inlay busy as a map. A black jackal sat on a shrine in the corner. Lamplight quick on its ears so it seemed to listen. The air was thick with resin and long dry oils. Not rot but age held in place. In one corner bouquets of lotus and cornflower lay bound. Petals turned to dust that still remembered their shape. It was treasure, yes, but it was also life paused, as if someone had stepped out of the room for the span of 3,000 years. We let the first laugh pass out of us and became what the work required. Eyes, hands, lists. Draw before touching, support before lifting, number before naming. Carter's slow became a litany. We laid boards, built small scaffolds, threaded ourselves among things that had not moved since our grandfathers' grandfathers were imagined. Even the men who liked mischief kept their jokes in their pockets. Felt like being watched with approval. The annex was a rich confusion. Jars inked with harvest dates from forgotten seasons, boxes stacked like a careless giant had packed for a journey, board games mid-play, throwing sticks for hunts along marshes no living boat would reach. The treasury held a canopic shrine, alabaster heads serene as moonlight attending jars that had once guarded a boy's insides the way courtiers guard a throne. Anubis crouched on his chest upon a litter like a loyal dog. Behind a still-sealed door the burial chamber received our lamps and gave back walls of gold. Great gilded shrines nested like thoughts, doors sealed, spells cut deep to catch a soul if it slipped. We dismantled the outer houses panel by panel, wrapping each plank as if swaddling a child, until the quartzite sarcophagus showed. Rose pink, a healed crack at one corner, a face on the lid calm as noon. Inside, a gilded wooden coffin. Beneath it, another. Beneath that, another, until the last lid rose and the air in the room thinned beyond lamps' understanding. The innermost coffin was solid gold. Not coin yellow, but the ripe color of sun held long in oil. The mask upon the king's face looked at us with lapis-ringed eyes, mouth composed, beard braided into order, striped nemes falling like quiet water. Not a god pretending to be a boy whom love and duty had taught to wear a god's face. The curse talk sprouted as weeds do, quick, opportunistic. A bite on Lord Carnarvon's cheek turned to fever and took him in Cairo. Someone said the city's lights failed at the hour of his death. I heard the electrician swear over bad wire. Someone said a dog howled in England and dropped. Tourists wanted the story to have teeth. I could not blame them. It is comforting to think the old world keeps accounts. But in those rooms I felt no malice, only the steady weight of being trusted with what could not be replaced. What I remember most are the small things. Resin's perfume that clung to beard and hair for weeks, so a man bargaining over onions smelled faintly of a king's room. The taste of dust when we breathed too near the photographer's plates. Village boys cutting masks from newspaper to frighten their sisters. The girls feigning boredom and watching anyway. The 4 o'clock wind that came down the notch like a bell, telling tools to rest. The jackal's glossy ears catching light so our hearts tripped before our minds caught up. Carter standing so still the dust forgot to rise. Then nodding once and the right board, the right rope, the right hands appearing as if the tomb itself had instructed us. We lifted the mask on a windless day. Perhaps that is why I felt something like wind lift the hairs along my arm. Under the gold the skull was small. He had been younger than many of us. The linen crossed him with a modesty that moved me. We did not stare. Wrap, list, lift, set. The mask went into a crate like sunset in a box. Outside, the world grew noisy. Ministers with collars like knives, ladies smelling of powder and orange flower, officials with smiles pressed flat. Some spoke as if the Nile had waited all these centuries for their astonishment. Others only looked and swallowed, and I liked those best. In Cairo, rooms were cleared and polished to receive the dead publicly with the dignity denied them privately for millennia. Men in coffeehouses argued about what should stay and what should travel, as if gold's loyalties changed with latitude. Downriver fishermen swore the current carried bits of dark petals. A baker pinned a scrap of a printed face to his wall and has never taken it down. The curse, if you ask me, was wonder's weight. It sat on our backs and made us deliberate. It followed us into sleep and made us wake careful. It asked for patience we did not know we owned and paid us in the pride that comes when you do a thing properly and no one sees the 100 chances you had to take the quick path and did not. My wife said my hair smelled of incense even from the fields. My youngest learned to say the king's name before he could manage his uncle's. My scarred hands grew gentle. If you ask for the true beginning, it was the candle flame bowing once into the dark and then standing straight. If you ask for the moment I understood, it was when a crate slipped the width of a finger and 4 hands caught it exactly right and we all sat down at once and laughed because relief is a kind of prayer. If you ask what remains, it is this: time does not erase everything. Sometimes it waits with its breath held. If you are careful, slow, and again and slow, you may be allowed to see wonderful things.